Intimately familiar with Muni's inability to clamp down on overtime costs. In fact, I have a piece of legislation that will hopefully be voted on for final approval tomorrow to address overtime. We have a requirement in San Francisco that once you work over a certain amount of overtime, right now it's at 30%, you need to get an exemption for additional overtime from our city's central human resources department. We have found that the MTA is the agency that has required the most number of exemptions from the Department of Human Resources. We've had scores of MTA workers that are literally working hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of extra hours a year, such that we've had individuals that have been working almost 80-hour work weeks for months on end, particularly within Muni. And this has an impact not just as far as an overtime usage culture, but it has an impact on safety. My legislation is designed to, again, continue to bring down the cap so that we know earlier which departments are utilizing more overtime. And in the long run, the MTA is the #1 department that needs to prioritize clamping down on their overtime costs. And so I want to see the impact of my legislation as well as other things we're trying to do to curb overtime to really get a handle on this.
Okay.
Yes, I have been a strong and long-term supporter of the Van Ness and Geary bus rapid transit systems. I think that allowing our buses to have dedicated lanes will mean that riders can safely assume that the buses will come and pick them up and drop them off when they need it to be, which will alleviate the need for these passengers to get into their private cars, which will speed up traffic for everybody. And I think that it is a good use of money and something that I support on Geary and Van Ness and in other places that we may want to consider it.
Okay.
I do support the Central Subway Project. It is something I have been studying for many years. In fact, before I was elected to the Board of Supervisors, I sat on the Citizen Advisory Group to the Central Subway Project. Ever since the Loma Prieta earthquake in 1989, the densest and most transit inaccessible neighborhoods in my district, in the heart of the city, have been sorely challenged without a main transit artery. And we decided 20 years ago that the city needed to make a commitment to extending the Muni system into the heart of the Northeast neighborhoods. And over the past 20 years, our federal officials have worked with local officials to find the funding to do this. I know that this has been a subject of a bit of debate in recent weeks, but there is nothing that has come up recently that involves objections or issues that we haven't heard of before. And the fact of the matter is, this is a large project, and no one is going to deny that the price tag is significant. But what I think a lot of folks don't focus on is that $1 billion worth of the funding for this project is coming from the federal government, and is funding that if we do not move forward with the Central Subway Project, we cannot use that money for anything else. We either use it or we lose it. We either get $1 billion to build much needed transportation infrastructure and $1 billion worth of jobs to San Francisco, or we let all that go. And I just don't think that that is a wise choice for San Francisco. And I certainly think that a north-south access that connects all parts of the city to the densest neighborhoods in the city is a very smart thing. To have the west side and the southeast of the city be connected through the central hub up into the northeast neighborhoods makes a lot of sense, and this is why I continue to support the project. Oh gosh, that's a good question. I have to say the line that I probably take the most often, which is the #1, which is one of our city's most traveled lines, which is usually extremely crowded, but brings together a whole diversity of folks through a wide cross-section of our city. I'd probably like to be the #1 bus that carries these folks through the heart of our city, from neighborhoods with a lot of families into our downtown corridor, into our tourist destinations. The number of languages spoken on this bus, the number of seniors, of kids, the number of working professionals. It's just a fun, lively route that I used to take often when I was commuting into my workplace before I was on the Board of Supervisors. I think that makes sense. And by the way, I should say, and this is no pun intended, but I do hope that folks will think of me as a #1 bus and rank me #1 on the ballot come November 8th.